Do it again. He actually thinks he's being serious. That was Mallory's voice, shrill with laughter, unmistakable even behind the sliding door. I stood frozen in the hallway, keys still in my hand, shoes muddy from the storm outside, and a grocery bag of her favorite green tea crushed between my arm and jacket. The door was open a crack. Inside, I saw her, my wife, bent over in fake concentration, squinting her eyes and doing a cartoon version of me. Hands waving like some malfunctioning robot, voice nasally and dramatic. I'm not saying the internet is slow, babe, but it's probably the DNS packet transfer, or maybe it's... She cut herself off, doubling over in laughter. More giggles followed. Mallory was practically crying. Jade nearly spilled wine on the carpet. You actually listened to all that? One of them asked. Every night, my wife replied. Like a bedtime podcast from a man who thinks his job matters. They howled. And I stood there, just 2 feet away, invisible to the woman who used to mouth, "Thank you," when I fixed the Wi-Fi mid-Zoom call. They had no idea I was home. They had no idea I was done. That tea in my hand. I dropped it right there in the hallway. Glass shattered. Laughter stopped. Dead silence. The sliding door slid open slowly. She stood there, barefoot, flushed, face falling from laughter to dread as she met my eyes. The others sat frozen on the couch behind her, like mannequins caught mid-scene. No one said anything. I didn't either. I turned, walked out the door, and got in my car. I didn't go far. Just enough to think. Because leaving isn't just a decision, it's a process. And that night, I realized. I'd already been disappearing for months. This was just the moment I heard it out loud. And trust me, that was only step 1. I didn't answer her calls that night. Or the texts. Or the voice memos. Yes, she actually sent voice memos, like I was supposed to replay her sighs and half apologies on loop. I parked outside the 24-hour diner near the highway. The one we used to go to when we first moved into the apartment. I used to love that place. Greasy booths, fluorescent lights, the hum of the soda fountain. But that night, it felt like a waiting room for people who didn't know where else to go. I sat there in my car until 2:38 a.m. No music. No scrolling. Just silence. I kept thinking of the way they laughed. It wasn't even the impression that stung the most. It was that she performed it. Rehearsed. Enjoyed. She waited for her chance, and when it came, she made me into something cheap. Disposable, laughable, small. And I wondered, when exactly did she stop respecting me? Because love can erode quietly. But respect? That vanishes like a snap when you're not watching. At 3:11 a.m., I got the text that changed everything. Just one line. If you're trying to make me feel guilty, congrats, it's working. That's what she wrote. No, I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean it. Just a passive-aggressive guilt check, as if I was the one playing games. And that's when something shifted. I opened my notes app and typed one sentence. She doesn't get to tell the story. I do. That was it. I knew I wasn't going back. Not as the joke. Not as the doormat. Not even as the bigger person. I started planning. First thing the next morning, I called out of work. Said I had food poisoning. My manager sounded annoyed but didn't ask questions. I spent the day doing 3 things. Booking a storage unit. Changing my passwords. Reaching out to Declan. Declan was my oldest friend. He lived 2 hours away and had been through a divorce 2 years earlier. The kind where you lose the house, the car, the cat, and still have to split brunch spoons. He answered on the second ring. Hey man, long time. I need to disappear for a bit, I said. He didn't even pause. Keys are under the mat. You know the code. No questions. No judgment. Just space. By sunset, I returned to the apartment. Quietly. She wasn't home. There was lipstick on a wine glass in the sink. A half-drunken bottle of Merlot still on the counter. Her friends had stayed late. I walked into our bedroom and took a long look around. Then I did what I should have done months ago. I started packing. But not everything. Just the essentials. Just enough to vanish without setting off alarms. She texted again around midnight. So you're just going to ignore me now? No, I wasn't going to ignore her. I was going to let her see nothing. No reaction. No drama. No fight she could twist into a punchline. The last thing I did before I left that night? I took the whiteboard off our fridge, the one we used for grocery lists and motivational quotes, and wrote something in big black marker. If I'm just the joke, you'll need a new punchline. Then I placed her phone charger next to it. Because I knew she'd wake up late. Hungover. Clueless. And I wanted the first thing she reached for. to remind her that I was already gone. The silence after I left was almost too quiet. No explosion, no dramatic confrontation, no chase to the driveway. Just absence. But silence doesn't last long with someone like Faye. It's not her nature. She needs a story. And if she doesn't get one, she writes it herself. I was at Declan's place less than 48 hours when the first ripple hit. A photo, sent by my sister, out of the blue. It was a group shot, posted to Instagram by Mallory. They were out at some rooftop bar. Faye in the middle, drink in hand, bright red lips, doing her best unbothered goddess look. The caption? Cheers to surviving passive-aggressive husbands, wineglass, hashtag, circle strong, hashtag, sumpio plecan take a joke. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was surprised she'd pretend. I expected that. What hit me was how fast she moved to turn herself into the victim. She left out the part where she mocked me in front of an audience. She skipped over the voice memos where she shifted blame. Instead, she gave them the version where I stormed off, dramatically, like I was punishing her for having a personality. And her followers ate it up. You deserve better. He sounds insecure. Men like that hate women who shine. I wasn't even mad. Just numb. Numb in a way I hadn't felt before. And that's when Declan said something that I haven't been able to forget. You know what her real fear is, right? He asked over a bowl of reheated curry. What? That you won't come crawling back. That you'll stay quiet. That you won't give her a villain to point at. I didn't respond, but it stuck. Faye needed conflict because conflict made her the star. But if I gave her nothing, no explosion, no dramatic posts, no begging, she'd have to sit in it. And I wasn't going to give her a single word more than she deserved. But of course, she escalated. The next morning, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. You're hurting her. Whatever's going on, be a man and go fix it. It was Nolan, one of her male best friends. The kind who always hovered a little too long at parties, who laughed a little too loud at her jokes. I'd always suspected he was waiting for an opportunity, and now he saw one. That's when I realized she wasn't just rewriting the story. She was recasting it. Me, the bitter husband who ran away. Her, the vibrant, misunderstood woman left behind. And Nolan, the shoulder to cry on. It made me sick. But the worst part was what came next, the group message. I hadn't spoken to most of her friends in months. But suddenly, a new chat popped up on my phone. The Real Story Eyes. Mallory, Jade, two of the others. And me. No Faye. Mallory wrote. Okay, we weren't going to say anything, but what she did was kind of brutal. And then, a video. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over it for a long moment. Then I tapped. It was taken before I walked in that night. The dare. The whole setup. Mallory recording, Jade prompting her. Faye. He always tries to sound like he's smarter than everyone. I'll get him to do the stupid voice. Laughter. I give it 10 seconds before he freezes. I felt my throat tighten. This wasn't just teasing. This was malicious. And the video? It had been shared privately to their group chat. Mallory only sent it now because, in her words, Faye's playing too hard into the poor me act, and we didn't sign up for that. It wasn't loyalty. It was drama fatigue. Even her friends were turning on her. Not because they cared about me, but because she was too obvious. I didn't respond. I didn't say thank you. I just watched the video again and again, realizing how many times I'd missed the signs. But that changed now. I was done being the guy who flinched. It was time I started reclaiming my narrative. Quietly. Strategically. She wanted an audience? I'd give her one. Just not the kind she expected. The strange thing about revenge is that it doesn't always come from rage. Sometimes, it comes from a calm so cold that it scares even you. That's what it felt like after watching that video over and over. No shouting, no broken dishes, no dramatic texts. Just a quiet, steady kind of resolve that builds in your chest until you stop shaking. That night, while she was probably out telling people I'd run off to think about what I'd done, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. The messages, the photo, the video Mallory sent me, every timestamp, every post. I didn't even know why at first, maybe for closure, maybe to protect myself if things got worse. But as I typed, the anger began to fade into something else, clarity. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined the contempt. It was real, recorded, and digital, and that meant she couldn't rewrite it anymore. I didn't sleep much. By morning, I had 3 folders on my desktop: proof, legal, and goodbye. I wasn't sure which one I'd end up using first. Declan walked in with 2 coffees and a look that said he'd seen that expression before, the one men get right before they stop being doormats. "She's not expecting you to do anything smart," he said flatly, setting a cup down. "So do something smart." That line stuck in my head for hours. Around noon, Faye finally reached out again, but this time, her tone had changed. The guilt was gone, replaced with that fake, soft pity people use when they think they're superior. "Thad, I know you're upset, but this is getting ridiculous. You leaving made me look insane. My friends think you're unstable now. Can we please talk and fix this before it gets worse?" Worse? That word stood out. Before it gets worse. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about optics, about what her coworkers might think, about how long she could keep her performance believable. So I decided to test something. I texted back, "Sure, tonight, 7 p.m., at the place you first called me boring." I knew she'd remember. It was that trendy restaurant by the harbor, the one where she once joked to her friends that I ordered like an accountant. The moment she said she'd be there, I started my plan. Declan helped me set up 2 things, a small recorder app on my phone and a shared drive folder titled Insurance. We both knew this wasn't about catching her in a crime. It was about making sure I had her words, raw and unedited, in case she tried to twist the story again. I didn't trust her not to. When I got there, she was already sitting by the window, looking perfect as ever. That was the thing about Faye. She could be cruel and radiant at the same time. When I walked in, her smile faltered for a second, like she expected me to look worse, disheveled, broken, maybe desperate. But I wasn't. I was calm. "Thad," she started, "I'm glad you came. I think this got out of hand." "Yeah," I said, sliding into the chair opposite her. "It really did. You told people I ran off because I couldn't handle a joke." She laughed nervously. "It was a joke. You overreacted. So, humiliating me was a joke. Recording it was a joke. Posting about me was a joke. Lying to everyone afterward was also what? Stand-up material?" Her face stiffened. The waiter came by, and she smiled tightly until he walked away. "Are you recording me?" she asked, half joking, half serious. I didn't answer. Then she leaned in, her tone dropping. "You think anyone's going to believe your version? Thad, people like you always look guilty. You leave, you go silent, you make it easy for everyone to fill in the blanks. I'm just giving them what they expect." That sentence burned itself into my brain. "People like you." I smiled just barely. "You're right," I said softly. "People believe what they see, which is why you should really watch what you show them next." She didn't know it yet, but that entire conversation, the tone, the arrogance, every smirk, was being uploaded to a private link I'd already shared with myself and my lawyer friend from work. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth preservation. When we stood up, she tried to hug me. I stepped back. "You were supposed to be my wife, Faye, not my public relations problem." Her face dropped, like the script she rehearsed didn't have a line for that. I paid for my coffee, left her sitting there, and drove away. That night, she called 20 times. Then 30. Then an email. "Whatever you're planning, stop. You'll regret it." But I wasn't planning anything dramatic. Just something inevitable. Because when someone builds a world on humiliation, the collapse always starts with exposure. And I was done being her secret embarrassment. Now, she was going to live with hers. It started as a whisper online. At first, I thought maybe it was coincidence. A few people commenting under her posts, asking strange questions like, "So where's the video now?" Or "You really thought that was funny?" But by the third day, it was clear that the story she'd built, the pretty little tower of control, had started to crack. I didn't post anything myself. I didn't need to. The internet has this way of finding the truth when arrogance leaves breadcrumbs, and Faye's whole persona was nothing but breadcrumbs. Her girls' circle, the same ones who dared her to humiliate me, had grown bored of her narrative. A few of them leaked screenshots of their group chat to another friend, the same one who worked in PR and hated hypocrisy more than anything. And within hours, what was once a private humiliation had become an open secret. They didn't tag her name directly at first. Just vague posts, quotes, snippets of chat logs. But people are smart, especially when you've built your brand on being real and transparent. Suddenly, her followers began piecing it together. The thread spread like wildfire, about the influencer who mocked her husband live as a dare, only to cry victim afterward. The comments piled up faster than I could read them. At first, I didn't even want to look. I deleted social media weeks ago, but Declan sent me screenshots anyway. One stuck out. If this story's true, she owes her husband the world's biggest apology. For the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't bitterness. It wasn't joy either, more like vindication without celebration. Meanwhile, her texts turned frantic. Thad, we need to talk. Please, they're twisting everything. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this. If you posted something, take it down. Please, I'm losing sponsorships. She still didn't understand that I hadn't posted anything. I didn't have to. The truth was doing fine on its own. But then came the phone call that complicated everything. It wasn't her. It was Nolan, her so-called best friend, the guy who'd texted me before, pretending to care. His voice was low, tired, maybe even guilty. Thad, she's losing it, he said. I don't know what's real anymore. She said you recorded her, that you're trying to destroy her life. I laughed quietly. I didn't need to destroy it. She built it on a fault line. There was silence on the other end. Then he said something strange. She told everyone the humiliation was mutual, that you were in on the joke. I almost dropped my phone. Mutual? I had been standing there like a statue while she performed her cruelty for her audience. Mutual wasn't the word. Deliberate was. I didn't argue. I just told him the truth, that there was a recording, that her own words were saved, untouched, unedited. If she wants to deny it, I said, she can. But eventually, someone will hear the full version. He muttered something about not wanting to be involved, then hung up. Hours later, I got an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "You win." It was from her. No greeting, no apology, just a paragraph that reeked of exhaustion and deflection. I can't undo what I did, and I can't take back what's out there. But if your goal was to humiliate me back, congratulations. You succeeded. I hope this makes you feel big again. I read it 10 times, maybe more. Not because it hurt, but because I realized she still didn't get it. She still thought this was about revenge. It wasn't. I didn't need her to feel small. I just needed her to stop shrinking me. And yet, something about her tone felt unfinished. Like a warning before a storm. Declan noticed it too. She's not done, he said. She'll try to twist the ending, Thad. She always needs the last word. He was right. The next day, I got a call from my job's HR department. Apparently, an anonymous complaint had been filed accusing me of emotional harassment and public defamation. It was ridiculous, but it had her fingerprints all over it. I went in calmly, showed the documentation, the timestamps, even the video metadata. My manager, a man who'd seen his fair share of messy breakups, just nodded slowly and said, "Don't worry, we believe you." But I realized something bigger then. This wasn't about social media anymore. This was about survival. I wasn't just fighting for reputation. I was fighting to not let her drag me back into the mud she created. So that night, for the first time since everything began, I recorded my own message. Not for her, but for myself. My voice shook a little at first. I forgive her, I said quietly. Not because she deserves it, but because I don't want her taking up any more of me. Then I hit save. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up angry. But peace doesn't last long when you're married to someone who hates being forgotten. And by the end of that week, she made sure no one forgot her again. Faye had always relied on one thing. The assumption that people would choose the version of the story that was prettier, louder, and easier to digest. She didn't deal in truth. She dealt in performance. And now that her script had collapsed, she wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to recast herself. Her final act came 1 week later, during a podcast live stream I didn't even know she was guesting on. It was one of those influencer advice shows hosted by a girl boss type who wore pink headphones and sold empowerment coaching in $299 modules. I never would have seen it if it weren't for my coworker Alan sending me a clipped recording with the caption, "Bro, you have to see this. She's spiraling." I opened it, expecting some vague statement, maybe another pity plea. I wasn't ready for what I heard. The host asked her directly, "So this video, the one making the rounds, did he know he was being recorded?" Faye took a breath, smiled, that smile, and said, "Yes, that was a skit. We rehearsed it. It was a dark humor thing between us, but after we separated, he got bitter and leaked it to make me look abusive." I paused the clip. She didn't just lie. She flipped the entire narrative. Claimed it was all staged. Claimed I was in on it. Claimed the moment I stood frozen in the hallway, backpack still slung over my shoulder, was just me acting. And the worst part? The host believed her. That makes sense, she nodded, almost relieved. People love turning on women, especially when they're successful. Faye smiled again. He was never comfortable with my growth. I think deep down, he wanted to be the victim. So I gave him that. It was so rehearsed, so clean, almost like she'd practiced it in the mirror. I didn't know what to do at first. Part of me wanted to call in, or upload the full, uncut version of the night, or publish the emails, the texts, the smug confessions. I wanted to bury the lie before it spread, but I didn't. Not yet. Because this time, I realized something powerful. Her story was too perfect, too smooth, and the world had already seen enough of the cracks. Sure enough, the backlash didn't take long. By morning, the podcast comment section had turned. Why would you humiliate someone you supposedly love, even as a joke? She's lying. That video doesn't look rehearsed at all. This isn't dark humor. This is just mean. And then someone found an old tweet of hers, months before our fallout, where she joked about convincing your man to do dumb things for likes. She'd buried herself. Again, she tried to reply. She tried to explain. But the more she typed, the more obvious it became that she was unraveling. Her words became defensive. Her tone, desperate. And then the inevitable happened. Her brand deal started pulling out. Declan texted me mid-afternoon. She just lost the skincare sponsorship. That was her biggest one. By evening, her main account went dark. For a while, I didn't feel anything. Just stillness. Like I'd been holding my breath for months, and now I didn't even realize I was breathing again. But the truth is, there was no victory lap. No satisfaction in her collapse. Just a strange emptiness. Like the stage lights had finally gone out, and all that was left was a quiet, dusty theater. Still, the fallout wasn't quite over. That night, I got an email. Subject line, closure? It was from her. Short, barely 2 paragraphs. But it felt different this time. I guess you got what you wanted. People know what happened. I don't know if you told them, or if the universe just hates me now. Either way, I'm done trying to explain. I was wrong. I got caught up in the game and treated you like an accessory instead of a partner. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. It should have felt like justice. It didn't. It just felt late. I didn't reply. I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, and let the silence stay. For once, it didn't hurt. It was just peace. Real, full, unbothered peace. But even then, I knew she wasn't reaching out for me. She was hoping I'd respond. Hoping I'd help fix the image again. Hoping I'd meet her halfway and soften the ending. And that's how I knew. She still thought she had a say in how this story ended. I thought the final email would be the last of it. That she'd go quiet. That the noise would fade. That her name would eventually stop appearing in the corner of my life like a shadow I couldn't shake. For the first time in what felt like years, I started to think beyond her. Not just how to survive her, but how to exist without her name coming up in every mental sentence I wrote. So I started rebuilding, slowly, almost awkwardly. I rented a small 1-bedroom closer to the city. Got a cheap couch, 2 plates, and 1 coffee mug that read, "I fix Wi-Fi, not people." It made me laugh when I bought it. Not because it was funny, but because I finally felt like I could laugh without her watching. Work got better. I focused more. I finally started saying no to late nights and yes to weekends without checking Slack. I called my sister more. I showed up to my niece's birthday party, the first one I hadn't missed in 3 years. Life was almost normal. Until Jade messaged me. Yeah, that Jade. I hadn't heard from her since the night everything fell apart. One of the Foundry girls, Faye's inner circle, the one who pushed the dare. I expected gloating or guilt, or maybe both. But her message was short. I think you need to hear something. I'm not on her side anymore. I wasn't even back then. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could have ignored it. Maybe I should have. But curiosity is a dangerous thing when your wounds haven't fully scarred. So I replied. She asked to meet in person. Said it was too complicated over text. Against my better judgment, I said yes. Neutral ground. A bookstore cafe, middle of the afternoon. Public. No drama. She was already there when I arrived, sipping from a glass cup like it was her last line of defense. Thanks for coming, she said, not smiling. Curiosity, not forgiveness, I replied. She nodded. That's fair. We sat in silence for a moment before she spoke again. You know, I didn't want her to go through with it. The dare. I told her you wouldn't think it was funny. I raised an eyebrow. You were the one who filmed it. I filmed it because I thought she'd back out, she said quickly. I thought she'd laugh and wave it off, or say you were off limits. I never thought she'd actually go through with mocking you to your face like that. I didn't know if I believed her, but she didn't flinch when she said it. Why now? I asked. Why talk to me after all this? She looked down at her drink. Because she's blaming everyone. She's spinning the story again, saying we pressured her, manipulated her, that she never meant to hurt you, that it was all us. I didn't even blink. That tracks. She's rewriting everything, Thad. She's telling people she begged you to stay, that you left in the middle of a mental health spiral, that you ghosted her and blackmailed her with the recording. She's consistent, if nothing else, I said. Jade leaned in slightly. I didn't come here to defend her. I came to tell you something else. Something she never thinks I knew. I narrowed my eyes. What? She hesitated. Then she said it. She used to read your journals. The air left my lungs. What? I asked, barely above a whisper. Jade nodded. I saw her do it. Multiple times. She said you were too guarded, and the journals helped her understand what you really thought. She'd quote things you wrote, use them to win arguments. I sat back in my chair, stunned. That old leather-bound book I kept in the drawer next to my side of the bed. It wasn't a diary, just thoughts. Things I never said aloud. Fears. Insecurities. Doubts. Things I needed to say somewhere, because saying them to her felt impossible. I remember once she said, "You're scared I'll leave you because you think you're boring." I thought it was a guess. A painful shot in the dark. Now I realized it wasn't a guess. She read it. She said it made her feel powerful, Jade added quietly. Like she was inside your head without you knowing. I don't remember leaving the cafe. I just remember sitting in my car afterward, staring at the steering wheel, feeling like my mind had been broken into, and I never heard the glass shatter. All that time, I blamed myself for being too sensitive, too quiet, too careful. And all that time, she wasn't just mocking me publicly. She was using my own private fears to make it easier. That was the final betrayal. The last wire snapped. I blocked her number that night. For real. No soft unblocking to see if she reached out. No rereading old texts. No temptation to reply to the email. I even deleted the recording from my cloud. Not because I didn't need it anymore, but because it no longer mattered. The truth wasn't in the footage. It was in what she read and how she used it. That was the day I stopped being angry. Not because I forgave her, but because I finally accepted what she'd done. And once I did, she lost her grip on every part of me. There's this quiet that comes a few weeks after the chaos ends. Not the loud kind of peace where everything feels fixed. No dramatic movie scene. Just stillness. For the first time in forever, I didn't have to rehearse conversations in my head or anticipate how she'd twist my words into weapons. I just woke up, brushed my teeth, ate cereal, laughed at an old sitcom. Laughed like it actually reached my chest this time. I didn't know it, but I was healing. Not quickly, not neatly, but enough. It was a Tuesday when I ran into someone I hadn't seen in nearly 10 years. Her name was Quinn. We used to work together before I got promoted and transferred. Back then, she was the kind of person who remembered everyone's coffee order but couldn't remember her own deadlines. I always liked that about her. She led with heart, even when her life was chaos. We bumped into each other at the DMV of all places, the most human of locations. I was renewing my license. She was registering her cousin's car. Our eyes met. We both laughed awkwardly, and within 5 minutes, we were sitting outside with 2 vending machine sodas like we were back on a break shift in 2014. So married? She asked, sipping her Diet Dr. Pepper. I paused. Was. Emphasis on the past tense. Her eyes softened. I'm sorry. She didn't deserve you. I remember how you used to talk about her back then. It was like you were describing a cathedral. I laughed. A real one. Turns out, it was just a fancy house of mirrors. She didn't press for details. Didn't ask what happened. Instead, she told me about her life. Her dog. Her job. How she accidentally ended up taking a photography class and now gets paid to take engagement photos for couples who still believe in forever. We talked for 2 hours. About nothing and everything. When we stood up to leave, she smiled and said, "Let me know when you're ready to have your photo taken. Might be nice to finally be the one in the frame." Huh? I didn't text her that night. I waited. I let myself think. Let myself breathe. Let myself choose. Something I hadn't done for a long time without permission or fear or guilt whispering in my ear. And a few days later, I did text her. Not to flirt. Not to jump into something new. Just to say, thanks for reminding me that not everyone speaks in weapons. She replied with a single photo. Her dog, wearing sunglasses, under the caption, "You're not the only one rebuilding." And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt it. Not just relief, not just distance from the past, but hope. Not in someone else. In myself. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need the world to choose my side. I didn't even need the last word. I just needed to walk away, not to hurt her, but to stop hurting myself. And I did. So if you're reading this, expecting a revenge story, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This isn't about revenge. It's about release. And some stories don't end with punishment. Some just end with peace.